Good morning, everyone. The next topic today that we're going to discuss is diphtheria. I think everybody are attending the previous classes also. So, in today's topic, I would like to discuss regarding diphtheria in detail. So, what is diphtheria? So, diphtheria means it is nothing but diphtheria is an acute infectious disease. It is an acute infectious disease caused by toxogenic strains of Corynebacterium diphtheriae. Corynebacterium diphtheria. Diphtheria is an acute infectious disease and it is caused by toxogenic strains of Corynebacterium diphtheriae. It primarily infects the throat and upper airways and produces an toxin which is affecting the other organs. So what the definition is saying means diphtheria is an infectious disease, acute infectious disease, and it is mainly caused by the bacterium called Corynebacterium diphtheriae, and it is primarily means it is mainly affecting the throat and the upper airways, and the toxin which is produced during this disease is affecting the other organs. So this is how an diphtheria infected person will look like. You can see here the clinical manifestation. You can see the throat, how the pseudomembrane is forming there. You can see lymphadenopathy. I will discuss all these things clearly in the coming slides. And this is how the diphtheria bacterium will look like when it is checked in the electronic microscope. So what is happening means mainly the bacilli will multiply locally and release a powerful exotoxin which is causing the damage during this disease diphtheria. What it is happening? Formation of grayish or yellowish membrane, that is also called as false membrane, over tonsils, pharynx and larynx and with well defined edges. So what it is causing? You can see it in the picture clearly. I will show you. You can see it in the picture clearly. I will show you. See, there is formation of grayish yellowish membrane, that is also called as false membrane, over tonsils, pharynx and larynx. You can see in the picture over tonsils, pharynx and larynx. Congestion, edema or local tissue destruction. What is happening? There is congestion and there is edema and there is destruction of local tissue which is involved by this bacteria. Enlargement of regional lymph nodes, that's what it is causing lymphadenopathy, enlargement of regional lymph nodes. And it also include toxemia, means the toxins are mixed with the blood. So there are mainly three major clinical types which have been described so far. First one is anterior nasal and second one is phaseal and third one is laryngeal, and the other parts which are involving during the disease diphtheria is conjunctival, skin, genital, that means vulval region, and the other parts of the body. So all these three are the major. Coming to the epidemiological triad, what is the agent here? The agent is Corynebacterium diphtheriae and the host factor is the children who are below 5 years of age. It can occur at any age, but most susceptible persons are children who are below 5 years of age. And the third one is environmental factor. So in which time it is most favorable for the bacterium to grow and replicate is winter season. Coming to the agent factor is Corynebacterium diphtheriae. So coming to the properties of this Corynebacterium diphtheriae, it is a gram-positive bacteria and it is non-motile and it has no invasive power. It is gram-positive, non-motile and it has no invasive power, but produces powerful exotoxin which is responsible for the damage. Even though it is non-motile, even though it doesn't have any kind of invasive property, it produces a powerful exotoxin which is responsible for the damage of tissues and other organs. So this Corynebacterium diphtheriae is mainly of three types. First one is mitis, gravis and intermediate. You can see it in the red names, mitis, gravis and intermediate. Three morphological types of Corynebacterium diphtheriae are found. They are mainly mitis, gravis and intermediate. medias. So coming to the mites, it is growing in black colonies with gray periphery. You can see it in the picture clearly. And the second one is gravis. It is large in nature and gray colonies are appearing. So we can differentiate whenever we are diagnosing it, whenever we want to find which type of the Corynebacterium has infected the person. If you are going for a culture media, tellurite containing media, in that you can see mites will grow like black colonies with gray periphery, and gravis will grow like large gray colonies, and they are large in color. And the third one is intermediates, means they are small, dull gray to black. All produces an immunologically identical toxin. What they are doing, even though they are in different types, mites, gravis and intermediates, what they are doing immunologically, they are producing identical toxin. The toxin which is produced by these three types of bacteria is identical. Coming to the source of infection. What is the source of infection here? The source of infection is same like the previous topics, such as cases and carriers. What are the cases? Cases ranges from subclinical to frank clinical cases. So the person who are infected with diphtheria are the main sources of infection. Coming to the carriers, who are these carriers? So carriers are common sources of infection, and their ratio is estimated to be 95 carriers for 5 clinical cases. If there are all these carriers, if there are 5 clinical cases, the persons who are surrounding them, 95% of them will be carriers. Understood? If there are 5 cases in a particular area, the people who are surrounding those 5 people, 95% of them will be carriers, means they are infected, but they do not produce any kind of signs and symptoms because their immunity level is good. They are carrying the bacteria, but the symptoms are not exhibited in them. So the ratio is 95 carriers for 5 clinical cases. So these carriers may be temporary or may be chronic, means the virus in the carrier can last for few days to several years or months. And their infective material is nose or nasal or throat, and the incidence is about 0.1 to 5.0. Coming to the infective material. So what is infective material here? The diphtheria is mainly infecting which type of areas? Just think of it. As I said in the earlier, it is infecting the conjunctiva, it is infecting the anterior nasal, facial and laryngeal, mainly the upper airway. So that's what the secretions which are coming from nasopharyngeal secretions are termed as a infective material. And discharge from the skin lesions. The persons who are having diphtheria, the discharge from their skin lesions also is infective. And next one is fomites. Fomites include throats, spatulas and utensils, toys and pencils. What are fomites? Fomites are nothing but the instruments which we use regularly. So if an infected person is coming in contact with these material, there are more chances of spreading the infection. You can see it here. See, when the secretions from the nasopharynx, mainly the saliva, whenever he coughs or sneezes, so the secretions which are coming out are released into the air. You can see the spatula. Sometimes when the spatulas are reused without proper autoclave or without proper precautions, there are chances of spreading this disease, diphtheria. What is the period of infectivity? So before that, I want you to know what is the incubation period for this disease. The incubation period of this disease is about 2 to 6 days, and it may last longer. 14 to 20. The period of infectivity is 14 to 28 days unless treated. So if a person is infected with diphtheria, the person is considered as contagious from 14 days to 28 days unless and until he is treated, unless and until he is treated. The incubation period is about 2 to 6 days. So once the incubation period is over and the symptoms are starting to appear in the person's body, if we are unable to treat the person, the person remains contagious from 14 days to 28 days until and unless we treat him with the proper medication. And carriers may remain infective for much longer period. So as I said earlier, carriers can be like they can be temporary or they can be chronic, whereas in the cases if we are not treating them, they are infective for 14 to 28 days and may continue. But coming to the carriers, they do not exhibit any kind of symptoms, so that they are not receiving any kind of treatment. That's what these people remain for much longer period as a carrier compared to the cases. So coming to the host factors. So what are the host factors? Host factors include age, sex and immunity. All these three comes under host factors. So what is the identical age for this diphtheria is, particularly it is affecting the children who are 1 to 5 years age below. In countries where widespread immunization is practiced, a shift in the age and incidence has been observed from preschool to school age. So host factors generally in developing countries are like 1 to 5 years. Host factors in developing countries are just like 1 to 5 years. But where there is immunization, where there is proper immunization in developed countries, there is shift in the age factor. There we can observe the shift in the age factor, from where it is going from preschool to school age. Means it is for those children who are in developed countries who received the vaccination, the diphtheриal disease shift has been occurred and it is shifted from the age 5 years to above 5 years. Coming to the sex, both sexes are affected. That means both genders are affected. You can see the male child as well as the female child here in the picture. What are the possible environmental factors? What are the environmental factors that are favorable for transmitting diphtheria from one person to another person? The transmission is mainly favored in the winter season. The transmission is mainly occurring in the winter season. So coming to the portal of entry. What is the portal of entry here? It is respiratory route. The portal of entry is respiratory route, and there are two types of portal entries. It can be respiratory or it can be non-respiratory. Coming to the respiratory, mainly the respiratory tract, and coming to the non-respiratory route, they are skin cuts, wounds and ulcers. You can see clearly in the picture, when the virus is entering through respiratory tract, it enters through the nasal cavity, and the other non-respiratory route includes skin cuts, as I am showing it in the picture, and the wounds and ulcers. All these are coming under portal of entry. And what is the mode of transmission? Since it is a respiratory tract disease, the mode of transmission is always droplet infection or droplet nuclei, and through infected cutaneous lesion. It can be through infected cutaneous lesions and through milk, foods and fomites. These are the other forms of mode of transmission. Coming to the incubation period, as I said earlier, incubation period is about 2 to 6 days and occasionally it might last longer. So some common symptoms of diphtheria, you can see it in the picture. Some common symptoms of diphtheria include sore throat, swollen glands in the neck, barking cough, and a racing heart, wheezing and breathing difficulty, and fever and chills. So clinical features according to the types. If you are coming to the anterior nasal, as I said earlier, anterior nasal, facial and laryngeal. So anterior nasal, it is more common in infants. And you can observe rhinorrhea. So the discharge may be watery, serosanguineous, purulent and foul smelling. The rhinorrhea means nothing but discharge from the nose. It could be watery, it could be serosanguineous, it could be purulent, it could be foul smelling. and white membrane is formed. You can see clearly in the picture, you can see on the tongue and you can see on the tonsils and inner part of the mouth. So delayed systemic manifestations, all these are the things. Coming to the pharyngeal and tonsillar, if the diphtheria is coming on pharyngeal and tonsillar, symptoms include sore throat, 50% of them have fever, few have dysphagia, hoarseness, malaise and headache. And signs include unilateral or bilateral tonsillar membrane formation, as I shown in the picture. See, unilateral or bilateral tonsillar formation, you can see it in the picture clearly. So there is formation of bilateral pseudomembrane here on the tonsils, which it is extending to the soft palate, posterior oropharynx, hypopharynx and glottis. All these are the things. So soft tissue edema can be observed, enlarged lymph nodes, and these enlarged lymph nodes will look like bull neck appearance. These enlarged lymph nodes are appearing like bull neck appearances, and effort to remove these membranes will result in hemorrhage. So as I am saying, there will be soft tissue edema, and you can see lymph nodes enlargement. You can see lymph node enlargement which will look like a bull neck, and effort to remove this membrane will result in hemorrhage. So you can see it in the picture. You can see the white layer which is formed on the tongue as well as the both tonsils, and you can see it in the picture clearly. So an effort to remove this pseudomembrane layer, or means false layer, it will result you in bleeding. So coming to the laryngeal, the symptoms that we can observe are noisy breathing, stridor, hoarseness of voice, dry cough, fever, and it may lead to asphyxia. Coming to the, you can see it in the picture, laryngeal diphtheria. So you can see here the picture how it is showing. If it is cutaneous diphtheria, ulcers are around mouth and nose. You can see here clearly in the picture, the ulcer is on the mouth and the nose. They have definite border. You can see clearly they are having definite borders and membranous base. They are having definite borders and membranous base. Coming to the conjunctival, so affects palpebral conjunctiva. Presentation is edematous and membrane formation. So you can see it in the eyelid here. There is it is edematous, and there is false formation of the membrane. So this is about the types of diphtheria and its clinical features. Coming to the diagnostic part, Schick test. So even though it is not in use at current day, I would like to share you some information regarding this. So Schick test, it is an intradermal test. Which tests two things. What it is testing means the presence of antitoxin, and therefore information regarding the immunity status. What it is testing means, it is mainly checking for the presence of antitoxins, and it is giving us the immunity status of the individual. And second one is the state of hypersensitivity to diphtheria toxin or other proteins of diphtheria cells. So for these two things they are doing this mainly Schick test. So this is how the Schick test will look like. I will discuss you clearly in coming slides. So it is a simple procedure. What they are doing is, a small amount of 0.1 ml of diluted diphtheria toxin is injected intradermally into one arm of the person, and a heat inactivated toxin on the other as a control. So if a person do not have enough antibodies to fight it off, the skin around the injections will become red and swollen. It indicates positive result. So here this picture is indicating positive result. So the swelling disappears after a few days. So whatever the swelling that had appeared, it will disappear after few days. If the person has an immunity, then little or no swelling can be seen. As I said, if the person do not have enough number of antibodies to fight the infection, what will happen? The site where we have injected the injection will become red and swollen. It indicates a positive results. And if the person has proper immunity and if there is no swelling or any redness, it indicates the person having negative results. So mainly results can be interpreted as positive, pseudo positive, negative and combined. So coming to the positive, when the test results in a wheel of 5 to 10 mm in diameter, so wherever we have injected the injection, so there we can observe a wheel like structure. That means the red swollen wheel like structure is appeared, which is about the size of 10 to 5 millimeters, and it will reach its peak in 4 to 7 days. The maximum size is attained in 4 to 7 days. The control arm shows no reaction. So where we have injected the inactivated toxin, there we cannot see any kind of reaction. This indicates the subject lacks antibodies against the toxin and hence he is susceptible for the disease. If the result is positive, that means he is susceptible for the disease and we can give him the vaccine. Coming to pseudo positive, when there is only a red colored inflammation which is called as erythema, it disappears within 4 days. See, in positive, when it is positive, it reaches its peak stage in 4 to 7 days. But when it is in pseudo positive, it disappears within 4 days. This happens on both arms since the subject is immune but hypersensitive to toxin. So what is happening? You can observe pseudo positive reaction in both arms. You can see on the control hand, you can see as well as on the normal testing hand. What happens since the patient is infective but he is hypersensitive. So there will be sensitivity reaction but not the positive reaction. It is considered as positive. So coming to the negative reaction, if the person is immune to diphtheria, no reaction of any kind will be observed on either arms. That means there is no reaction. There is no reaction on the control hand and there is no reaction on the normal hand. So the next one is combined reaction. So the control arm shows a pseudo positive reaction and the test arm shows a true positive reaction. What is happening? The control arm, that means where the inactivated vaccine is injected, it is showing you a pseudo positive reaction. That means you can see some kind of redness or swelling on this area. Coming to the test arm where we have injected the normal toxin, there what is happening? Positive reaction is seen. There what is happening? The positive reaction is seen. This indicates that the person is susceptible to diphtheria. It indicates that the person is susceptible to diphtheria. A person who is proved to be susceptible but allergic by the Schick test should be vaccinated with caution. So what is happening here? There is a combined reaction. Combined reaction means there is test arm and there is control arm. You can see positive reaction in the test arm and in control arm you can see some erythematous. As I said, in pseudo positive reaction, what is happening? The person is immune. The person is having immunity but he is hypersensitivity to the toxin. So coming to the combined reaction, in hypersensitivity there is appearance of redness and erythema which will disappear gradually during the 4th day. But in combined reaction, what is happening? On the test arm you can see positive reaction. On the control arm you can see the hypersensitivity reaction. So here the person is surely susceptible for the disease. Surely he is susceptible for the disease and he needs some vaccination. But due to his hypersensitivity, we need to administer the vaccine with proper caution. We need to administer the vaccine with proper caution. So how we can control the diphtheria? Coming to the control of diphtheria, mainly in cases and carriers, mainly in contacts and mainly in the community. All these are the 3 topics. First one is in cases and carriers. What is the first and foremost thing is we have to detect the cases early. And active search for cases and carriers should start immediately amongst the family and school context. So whenever you come across a diphtheria case, what is the first and foremost thing that we have to perform is we have to identify the peer group. Here, what is the peer group? The peer group is nothing but the friends, family members and schoolmates, those who are living closely to the infected person. The peer group is nothing but those who are closely living to this person. So you have to identify these members. We have to detect these members early. Carriers can be detected by cultural method. The carriers can only detected by, what are the carriers here? Carriers are the person who are having proper immunity. They will fight but they will become carriers. They are capable of spreading the disease, but they do not exhibit any kind of signs and symptoms. Coming to the how we can detect these person, means how we can detect these carriers means we will take the blood culture and we can find out the disease. And swabs should be taken from both the nose and throat and examined by cultural methods for diphtheria bacilli. What they are doing, since it is mainly affecting the upper airway, mainly on the nasopharyngeal things, what we have to do, we have to take the swabs both from the nose and throat, and we have to observe in cultural methods. Second one is isolation. So what is isolation? Since it is contagious and it is transmitted from one person to another person, the thing we have to do is isolate the person. All cases, suspected cases and carriers should be promptly isolated. That means whatever the suspected case you might find. See, you can see in current trend what is going in our society. There is outbreak of deadly virus which is called as COVID-19. So what they are doing, even though they are not exhibiting any kind of signs and symptoms, if we are suspecting them, if there is positive case around them, what they are doing, they are going and testing all the other persons also, which is showing positive result as a coronavirus. Why? How it is showing means, the coronavirus which is present with the infected person has affected the healthy person also, but the healthy person, because of his good immunity power, he is not exhibiting any kind of signs and symptoms. So what we have to do in order to break the chain of the infection, we need to isolate the person. Either it could be a case, either it could be a carrier, or either he could be a he could be a suspect person. If we are suspecting them, if you think they are carriers, if you think they are cases, what we need to do in order to break the chain of infection, we have to take them and keep it in the isolation, nothing but quarantine. So preferably in hospital for at least 14 days or until proved free from infection. So how many days we have to keep means, we have to keep them in the hospital for at least 14 days until and unless we come to clarity, we confirm that they are free from the infection. And at least 2 consecutive nose and throat swabs must be taken 24 hours apart, should negative one before terminating the isolation. So what this sentence is saying means, at least we have to take 2 swabs from the patient before if we want to declare the patient that he is free from the diphtheria. What we have to do, we have to take 2 swabs within 24 hours, and those 2 swabs must show us the result of negative. Then only we can terminate the isolation of the person and we can send him back to his home. This is regarding isolation. So coming to the treatment part, it varies in cases and it varies in carriers. So coming to the treatment part of cases, what they are doing, so we are giving diphtheria antitoxin. It is given either IM or IV, and the dose is mainly ranging from 10,000 to 80,000 units, and sometimes it could be more also. And based on the severity of the disease, we are adding some other medications such as penicillin and erythromycin. And penicillin is given about 2.5 lakh units every 6th hourly, that means QID, and erythromycin is given 250 mg every 6th hourly, that means QID, and they are given for 5 to 6 days of course. Coming to the carriers, so how we can see, so how we can treat these carriers means, so based on their result, detection of carriers by nasal and throat swab examination. Age appropriate for diphtheria toxoid given immediately if the booster has not given before been given for past 1 year. So I will say you clearly regarding this point. The carrier should be treated with 10-day course of oral erythromycin, and it is most effective drug during the treatment of carriers. So in carriers, what they are doing, they are detecting the cases mainly through nasal swab and throat swab examination. Mainly they are giving through nasal swab and throat swab examination. So if you come to the immunization part of diphtheria, so based on the age, if the person did not receive his booster dose past 1 year back, if he had not received his booster dose past 1 year back, what we have to do is we have to give him the booster dose. So whenever we determine that the person is a carrier, what kind of antibiotic they are using means they are using erythromycin and rifampicin. It is a 10-day course. See, the antibiotic which they are using in the treatment for the carriers is erythromycin 500 mg QID for 10 days and rifampicin 600 mg OD for 10 days. And what we have to do, we have to do bacteriological surveillance. What is bacteriological surveillance? What we have to doing? So not only giving treatment, but once the treatment course is being finished, we have to go to the patient again, we have to go to the suspect carrier again, and we have to take the throat swab and nasal swab, and we have to conduct culture test. If that the tests are showing negative result, that means he is free from the diphtheria. So how we can control the contacts means, so whenever you come to know that so and so person came in contact with the person, they need a special attention. They should be throat swabbed and immunity status has to be determined. So what is happening, whenever you come across a contact person to the diphtheria, what we have to do, we have to do them the throat swab investigation. Then we have to determine their immunity status. So booster dose or primary immunization within past 2 years, no action is required. So if the person had received the booster dose or the primary immunization within this past 2 years, there is no need of giving any injection or any kind of medication to the person. If the person has received booster dose or primary immunization more than 2 years, we have to give him the booster dose of diphtheria tetanus. So medical surveillance is needed in this case also. After the exposure they need the medical surveillance, and bacteriological surveillance of close contact should be continued for several weeks, and repeated swabbing and approximately has to be done. So coming to the diphtheриal immunization, mainly there are 3 types of vaccines: combined or mixed vaccines, and single vaccines, and anti-sera. These combined vaccines include DPT, means diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus vaccine, and DT, diphtheria tetanus toxoid, and another DT which is diphtheria tetanus, and it is an adult type. Coming to the second one, the second one is single vaccines. See, you can see clearly in the picture, these are various types of vaccines which are available for diphtheria and tetanus toxoids, and acellular pertussis vaccine, tetanus and diphtheria toxoids observed, DPT vaccine, so diphtheria and tetanus vaccine. So all these things are the some vaccines which are available in the market currently. And the second one is single vaccines. So single vaccines include FT means formal toxide, APT means alum precipitated toxide, and PTAP means purified toxide aluminum phosphate, and the next one is PTAH means purified toxide aluminum hydroxide, and the next one is TAF, toxide antitoxin floccules, and the next one is diphtheria antitoxin. So coming to the DPT vaccine, what is this DPT vaccine means? It is mainly used for the immunization of infants, and pertussis component enhances diphtheria toxoid. These are mainly plain and absorbed. This DPT vaccine is about 2 types, plain and absorbed, and absorption is it is carried out on a mineral carrier like aluminum phosphate or hydroxide. Where we have to store means it should not be frozen. It should not be frozen. It should be kept in the refrigerator for at least 2 to 8 degree Celsius, and it will lose its potency if we keep it at room temperature for a long time. So where we have to store this thing, we have to store it in the refrigerator, and the temperature must be maintained like 2 to 8 degree Celsius. So if we are freezing this, the potency will be lost, and if we keep it at room temperature also, there is loss of potency. What is the optimum age means? The children who are having more age of 6 weeks, the mainly the infants after the birth, after 6 weeks of birth, we can give the children, and in how many doses it is given is, it is given in mainly in 3 doses. It is given mainly in 3 doses. Each time the person is receiving this DPT vaccine, we are giving him 0.5 ml. Coming to the mode of administration. So what is the mode of administration here? So all the vaccines which are containing minerals should be injected in intramuscular, and mainly the DPT is mainly given in upper and outer quadrants of gluteal region. Mainly given in upper and outer quadrants of gluteal region. So coming to the immunization schedule, what is the immunization schedule here? The immunization schedule for DPT vaccine is, it can be given at 6 weeks of age and 10th week of the age, 10th week after birth, and 14 weeks after the birth, and the booster dose is given after 1 year. That means from 16th month to 18th month. So what are all the observed reactions that is accumulated with DPT vaccine is, so fever and mild local reactions can be seen. It is about 2 to 6%, and 5 to 10% experiences swelling and induration, and there will be some neurological symptoms such as encephalitis, prolonged convulsions, and infantile spasms, Reye's syndrome. All these are possible reactions for after receiving the DPT vaccine. So coming to the contraindications, when we should not give this DPT vaccine means, so the children who are seriously ill and they need hospitalization, for those kind of children we should not give the vaccination, and we should not give the vaccine once the first, after giving the first dose of vaccination. If there is any kind of reaction that had occurred, you should not give the vaccine. And the next one is, in case of DPT and subsequent DT immunization, you should not give. And for children who are over the age of 5 years and those who did not receive DPT 2 doses and DT vaccine, you should not give the DPT vaccination again. And so coming to the administration of this vaccine, 2 doses at an interval we can give, that is within 4 to 6 weeks, and followed by booster dose at 6 to 12 months of age after second dose. Coming to the single vaccines, these are less frequently used. These are good immunizing agents, and the APT means alum precipitated toxide. It is hardly used and prone to give rise to severe infections. Each dose of these antigens generally contain 25 low Effler international units of diphtheria. Coming to the anti-sera, the mainstay of passive prophylaxis and also treatment of the diphtheria. This one is produced mainly. So here the diphtheria antitoxin is mainly prepared from horse serum. So how it is prepared from the horse serum means, in this slide you can see it clearly. The scientists, what they will do is, they will grow diphtheria causing bacteria in laboratory. After they are harvesting the laboratory, what they will do is, they will take the diphtheria bacteria and they will inject it into the horse blood. What it will do, the horse immune system will give response to it and it produces diphtheria antitoxins. Once this blood produces starting diphtheria antitoxin, scientists will go and collect the blood from horses and they will separate the antitoxin rich serum. Then what will happen, they will take this separated antitoxin rich serum into the laboratory and they will purify it, and they will make it absorbable to the human beings without any side effects. That's how the antitoxin is harvested from the antitoxin is taken from the horse serum. Thank you for listening. If you have any queries, you can contact me through WhatsApp.